Don in London, hello. It's January 28th, 2013. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour, equally addictive around being with the right people, in the right places, with the right things, doing the right things, trying to be perfect and never so. So always beating myself up for never being perfect and knowing full well I couldn't be, that I'd have a go. And I made life difficult for myself as a result. So I was never satisfied with my own behaviour, and if things went wrong in my life, it was always my fault. Well, normally it is, but sometimes there are contributing factors, and trying to cope with a dependency or an addiction as well as live life and try and live in reality can be very difficult, especially if the addiction is getting in the way of living completely. So alcohol got me in the end. It got me with the first drink actually, because it changed the way I felt. It took the edge off and it helped me feel convivial and joyful rather than fearful and sorrowful. So it had a good impact, that first drink. But I was just watching something on TV with Daniel Radcliffe and somebody else. I don't know if, it was the Young Doctor's Notebook or whatever it was. And the other actor, his surname is Ham, and he said when he took the first hit of heroin, that was the best it was ever going to be. And I guess that first drink was the best it was ever going to be, because it was the first time it ever happened. It's like whenever we encounter something for the first time in life, it's often a surprise, and it's often good, bad or ugly. But some things are exciting, and alcohol was exciting in my life, but these days the exciting thing is I don't drink anymore, one day at a time. And what helps me? Well, I didn't do it on my own. I had professional help to start with, and the professional help said go to AA, go to Alcoholics Anonymous. So I went to AA and I realised there were answers and solutions to the problem I had, which was how to stop drinking one day at a time. So the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, helps me every day. I don't speak for AA, never can, never will. There are no spokespersons for AA, and there are certainly no leaders as such in AA. So I share experience, strength and hope of how AA helps me today. I'm very clear about that. I cannot speak for other unique, authentic human beings who've got their freedom back, freedom to do what they choose with their lives. So I don't speak for them, anyone else, any of my fellows in fellowship, because you're all able to speak for yourselves where you choose. But I share the AA preamble, which is in this little book of AA, and it goes like this because it's important to me to share it. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. That's all it takes, a desire to stop. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety, and as part of that, my primary purpose this morning is to share some of my experience, strength and hope of how it works. But it's only one voice of many. That's what I need to emphasise always. It's the very many voices of recovery in the fellowship. We don't get it all from one source, or if we do, we might be in a bit of trouble because it's just one view. So my view is just one of many, and I share here because I was asked. That's why I do it. So January is all about step one and tradition one for me. Step one is all about powerlessness, and tradition one is about unity of purpose, to be sober today. So for today, common ground in fellowship. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. staying sober and helping each other, supporting, suggesting, and never imposing beliefs or opinions on our fellows. Support, suggest, but not impose. And in fellowship, respectful of all opinions and beliefs, everything to help each of us make free choices based on reality as it is, and the possibilities we have today. So fellowship is respectful. In fellowship, I am respectful of the beliefs and opinions of others, but it doesn't mean I'm going to adopt their beliefs and opinions, because we all have free choices about how we live our lives. So that means that sometimes it can get a bit difficult because we just don't agree, and then we have to agree to disagree. But the principle of helping and supporting is key. By the time I got to the fellowship of AA, I had lost my ability to live in reality and cope with it. I was very unwell, physically and mentally exhausted, and definitely at a rock bottom. Trying to cope with the physical withdrawal from alcohol was very disturbing. Trying to cope with the mental exhaustion was not only disturbing, I realised it was going to take quite a while to feel like any recovery was possible. Once I realised it was okay to be unwell, and then to start recovery with a time frame of 1 day, and that one day is all that counts to anyone in recovery, I started to feel a lot better about trying to do the impossible, to stop drinking and simply cope with the consequences of drink, and stopping the drinking. My sister suggested I should start from scratch as if I knew nothing, and then maybe I would listen, or could listen, to the experience, strength and hope of other people. And that's wise words from someone not afflicted, simply suggesting I give myself a break and understand that I needed time to recover enough to understand something about recovery. So it wasn't all plain sailing for me. I was very confused. And the 1 day at a time frame has stuck for quite a number of years, which is true, right up to the present day, and hopefully all of today. So I keep it in the day. It doesn't mean I can't make plans for the future. Plans often need to be made for the future, but I need to live in the moment. I was so confused in early days, but I was able to access the literature of the fellowship, the big book of AA. Now I've got a really big one for people with poor eyesight like me. It's not that bad, but that's the big book of AA. There's a more normal sized hardback, and then a small paperback version which contains the stories, with all the stories of recovery written by people over the years. And there was another book, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, and as I started to read about the 12 steps which help a person become free once again, or for the first time in their lives, experiencing freedom of choice and not feeling controlled either by alcohol, people, places or things. So it opened up a new possibility to be free. Hallelujah. And then the 12 Traditions, understanding how the fellowship works in unity, service and recovery. The 12 traditions which hold the fellowship together and ensure each and every one of us can hold our own opinions and beliefs. So we have common ground, but we also have our own opinions and beliefs, and still function together on this common ground. Ultimately being completely honest with ourselves and with the world in our endeavours. Anonymity providing sanctuary, as I see it, and this is just my personal opinion, anonymity providing sanctuary to find this new path of recovery and develop our emotional and spiritual experience of living in the moment of now. Fine words, and actually the thing is, it works. Living in the moment of now and coping with it. And when I can't cope, I can ask for help. That's the most important part of it. All of it's important. Everything is about suggestions in recovery, not telling people what to do, not trying to exert power over anything or anyone. At the same time, we will encounter enthusiastic individuals who will go beyond the suggestions, imposing their views on others. So I just say thanks for your view and get on with my views. And there are other individuals, sometimes they utilise fellowship to recruit individuals into other enterprises, and this enthusiasm is something I rejected, having got my fingers burned trying to help another person with their business issues. And it's easy to fall into those traps because we want to be helpful. We need to be helpful in unity, service and recovery on common ground, but that doesn't mean you go working for people inside the fellowship, either at reduced rates or no rate at all. And indeed it's not good to really mix them up, in my experience, until you have a measure of recovery yourself. So if someone says, can you come and help me, make sure you're making a free choice. If somebody needs a bit of a hand with a bit of whatever I can do, I will certainly give it a good thought, and most likely ask myself, can I really do this these days, and do I feel like it, and is it to do with recovery? So there are limits and boundaries that what we find for ourselves and what's right for us. We are very vulnerable when we are new to AA, and like all walks of life and all society, there are good people, bad people and ugly people. I mean in the emotional sense. So we need to be clear on our own motives, and that they are about fellowship, to be sober and help people find sobriety. And we need to make sure that we understand everything is suggested and not an instruction to follow that someone else has thought of, who thinks they know better than you about recovery. In other words, we listen to the experience, strength and hope of others, and we learn from their wisdom, and we share our wisdom of recovery from the very first moment we're there. The first wisdom is to get to a meeting, actually, and overcome the fear and the denial that you need it, or I needed it. That was for me. Yes, just because we have found the answer for ourselves and have the 12 steps. In other words, we listen to the experience, strength and hope of others, and we learn from their wisdom, and we share our wisdom of recovery. Just because we have found the answer for ourselves and how the 12 steps are working, of AA are working for us, we need to remind ourselves that the 12 steps work if people work at them, and not necessarily the way you are doing them. And this applies to me too. I share experience, strength and hope about what is working for me, and sometimes what works for me will definitely not work for you, one day at a time, because we all have a different outlook, different beliefs, opinions, but we have common ground and unity about recovery. Common ground, exclamation mark. Sharing our experience, strength and hope, encouraging newcomers and old timers to listen to the similarities in our stories and not the differences. Every single person in fellowship is different, and that is absolutely right. Nobody wants to be a clone or driven towards somebody behaving like a leader or a guru. There are definitely no leaders in AA, and we try not to put other people on a pedestal. And certainly if anybody tries to put you on a pedestal, I hope you have the sense to make it clear, like I do, that I'm only one voice, and reliance on one voice is never a good idea. It just isn't. It will always be the wisdom of the many, the love and support of the many, which helps one individual form their own path in recovery. We are united in service and recovery, and the rest of our beliefs and opinions are what we have already, and what we come to believe one day at a time. And where your beliefs go are where your beliefs go. What is right for you, not for me and my opinion or beliefs. Trying to adopt the opinions of another person rarely works. Trying to adopt the beliefs of another person rarely works. Understanding and adopting the principles of the 12 steps will lead a person to freedom and recovery one day at a time. So, for me, the 12 steps work as a process and an understanding of how to live, giving me freedom to have my own opinions and beliefs. So it's not about adopting other people's beliefs and opinions, but certainly listening to their wisdom of what works in recovery. I will often go to meetings and find that some really hit the spot. I can relate to how people are sharing about something to do with recovery and trying to deal with real life in the moment, rather than saving up problems until they are unmanageable. I have to correct that. It says manageable. You don't save them up to be manageable. You deal with each one as it occurs, so they don't become unmanageable. Very good typo. And sometimes I hear the beliefs and opinions of other people which make no sense to me at all. And when they make no sense to me at all, it is not for me to criticise them. It is for me to find out what is working in my recovery. At the same time, if people are asking for help and I have suggestions, I might share them, if it feels right to do so, and as long as I understand I am merely suggesting something and not instructing someone. It may be helpful or it may be unhelpful, and I need to respect the view of that person I am sharing with. Sometimes what seems logical or what just feels right for me may be absolutely wrong for the person listening, and them trying to make sense of the suggestion, well, not good. It's always a good thing to hear someone's opinion, and it's very good to get feedback. If it is helpful or completely unhelpful, I'm going to learn something new today. So sometimes it's a process of elimination. No, that won't work in my life because of X, Y, and Z. Or maybe it would work in my life if I stopped doing A, B, C. So we have to still use our noggins and work out what feels right and thinks right. Sometimes we can be over enthusiastic, although recently sometimes the newcomer might be undermined or underwhelmed when they find themselves in an established meeting where everybody knows everybody else. That's one of the worst things that can happen, is that not that the newcomer is ignored, but maybe someone doesn't really give them enough time, if it's their first meeting or just the first of the start of meetings. But it can happen. The AA pledge, I am responsible when anyone anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA to be there, and for that I'm responsible, can be simply asking a fellow who may have more time, or asking a fellow, should I go and help that newcomer, or try to. They might say no, you're too no. They might just say no, or they might say yes, or they might say no, not your sort of person, more my sort of person, and they may have wisdom which I don't know. So go with the flow. But it's not about me necessarily always being there with my hand saying hello. It needs to be the hands of the many, but not all at once, otherwise it is overwhelming. But the worst thing is for a newcomer to come into a meeting where nobody really takes account of them being a newcomer. How do I feel about fellowship this morning? The fellowship of AA is as good as it gets on the day we encounter people in meetings. Many times I've been overwhelmed by the help given on an emotional level. Many times I've turned up to a meeting point and found we are locked out, or someone has forgotten the key to the venue. Sometimes meetings are closed and are no longer there, or they have moved, and sometimes with luck somebody has left a message where the meeting has gone or where the nearest meeting might be. Sometimes meetings have become overheated, and they do happen. When people have strong opinions and want to enforce particular ways to run meetings, because of course this is human beings being human, and I've watched and even participated in group consciences which are excruciatingly long-winded. So excruciatingly long-winded that watching paint dry would be preferable and extremely interesting. So not every time is it good. Sometimes we can just think, oh my goodness, why are we in this big circle of going nowhere? Because sometimes we have to go nowhere to realise that's what we're doing, and there is no point to it. Sometimes meetings are good, bad and ugly, all at the same time, and we wonder what is going on, and often that opinion is shared by many. And the good news is we can laugh at ourselves, and eventually we will get back to common ground, just for a day. Mind you, sometimes it takes more than a day, which is very true, especially if it's a tricky issue. Yes, in all these years, this is true, no two meetings of the fellowship have ever been the same. Every day something changes, and we share about the changes. Experience, strength and hope is sometimes shared over and over on the same topic by one person. One person goes on and on and on, until the person finds the solution, or there may be no solution, and time to move on to something new. But we do listen. We do listen. That's the most important thing. And some things, like heartbreak, you can't just get over it. Indeed, we don't get over heartbreak. We learn to grieve the loss of a relationship, or whatever it is. Yeah. And very often at the end of each, here we are, we all live in the same day. We share history, what got us to fellowship, what keeps each of us in fellowship. And very often at the end of each meeting, after hearing and sharing the serenity prayer, people often say, keep coming back. It works if you work it. So work it, because you're worth it. And it's just for today. And that's really good. So common ground, unity, service and recovery, but freedom of the individual, each person, me, you, whoever it happens to be, freedom of choice is where we're at. After all, what would be the point of going to fellowship, finding unity, service and recovery works, and then having no freedom? Well, it wouldn't be working, would it? So, Article 1 of the United Nations Human Rights, or the Declaration of Human Rights, Article 1, freedom, happiness, peace. Yes, but nothing's a steady state, which is why we have fellowship. Otherwise, if it was a one-stop recovery station and then I'm cured, there'd be no point in fellowship. It could be adopted by some medical organisation, but even these days, medical organisations, you can't keep on going there 24/7. We need something in our community which makes it possible to get help and support when we need it, and that's fellowship, with some simple frameworks, steps and traditions which give a person back their freedom of opinion, belief and choice, common ground and freedom to choose life. Good, bad or ugly, we live it, and it won't always be good, it won't always be bad, and it won't always be ugly. The serenity prayer, which helps me in the moment of now on the can do, can't do, and restores me to sanity even when there's madness around in my own head sometimes, because once I realise what I can and cannot do, I settle down and realise the possibility, what my freedoms are right now. So to God, or in good conscience, or as you come to believe for yourself, what is right for you, that's all it is. So to God, or in good conscience, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that serenity prayer works all day long, in all conditions. Can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference. Can't do on my own, ask for help, might get a different direction. Can do, I'll do it. Can't do, ask for help. Don't just hand it over to something and hope for the best. If you can't do something, either because it seems impossible or impractical, ask for help. It's as simple as that. And sometimes you get a good answer, sometimes you get not so good answers and ugly answers, but eventually you get to where you can get to, and let go the rest. Let go undermining yourself on the cannot do bits. You cannot change the world, people, places or things generally, but you can change your attitudes and behaviour and get to a can-do freedom again. Enough. In the moment, in the minute, in the hour, and just for today.